Good evening and welcome to another episode of Apolitically Incorrect Guyana. My name is KIAN Jabour and as usual, I am your host this evening. We're also live on Instagram on my personal page. If anybody would like to tune in there instead, you're more than welcome to come and check us out. But I have a very, very, very special guest with us here today. Somebody super, super interesting, somebody super cool, somebody super different, somebody that is going to, as far as I'm concerned, change the game as far as politics in Guyana goes. So I have with me today ANUG's next parliamentarian and Guyana's newest parliamentarian, starting, I think, on the 29th of February. So what I would like to do right now is introduce Miss Althia King. How are you doing today?
Hello, everybody. Good night. I am doing fine. Thanks again for having me here. You guys giving me no rest.
No, you don't need rest. Althia, you are ready to take over Guyana right now in politics.
We are in the beginning of the race.
Yes, you have gotten such raving reviews so far. People love your background story. People love the fact that we have some fresh blood and new energy in the political arena. Somebody that is not, and let me make this very clear, not coming with political baggage. That, to me, I think is the most critical aspect. Nobody got time with all these old politicians and all the old ideologies of what has been going on in Guyana for how many years now of the same thing over and over. Now, Althia, let me ask a super cool first question. Tell me, what made you get into politics?
Well, so it really started with my passion, as I would have mentioned this to many persons. Passion for giving back to your community, passion for developing your environment, giving back to your country in general, wanting to see your country in a better place. So I would have collaborated with some youths, basically from a new and united Guyana. We would have collaborated on few projects that actually had some cleanup around Guyana. Nothing fun and better to see a clean Guyana, a clean country, knowing that persons are coming into your country. We want our tourism to be boosted and we want to have a clean Guyana, one of the main important things. So that was where my growth started, knowing that collaborating with this youth was being a part of a political group that initiated these projects. I gradually grew into the message that ANUG actually displayed out there. And I actually made it very clear that my interest will always be to, if I can be a part of politics while doing humanitarian services, I am definitely in, count me in. So I actually prefer to be more of the activist, right? Activist in the background, but now I'm in the front row, as I know at some point would have happened. So here I am.
Thrown into the deep end right away. Are you excited about Parliament?
I am excited, actually. Excited for the experience, excited for the many things that I can learn in politics, and mainly going in with a fresh mindset. Like you say, I have no political baggage. So I am going in with a fresh and honest perspective, as a youth, as a woman, as someone who, as a student, as different factors of my life that I've experienced in my country, and the feel of knowing which area I want to improve, of which area I want to develop, and which area I want to make an impact in.
Good. Well, no, don't let me stop. We're rolling with it. I want to know what is close to Miss Althia King's heart. I want to know what she is looking to achieve in Parliament, what she wants to see first and foremost change in Guyana. Not that, don't get me wrong, we all know that there's a lot to change. And I know this is a multifaceted situation, but I want to know what is personally close to you. I want to know what you feel you can address and what your strong points are. So give it to me. When you're going to den with the big dogs, I want to hear where you're fighting.
Lovely. So I'm glad that you asked. This is a very interesting question because I didn't get a chance to actually elaborate on that on my previous interview. But first of all, what person should know of me, I'm a budding psychologist. I am currently pursuing my degree in psychology, in general psychology at the University of Peace Study. Well, the aim is to pursue my doctorate as a clinical psychologist. So that's my aim.
Ooh.
So first of all, psychology is a big part of me. So when you look at Parliament, we have a diversification of persons in Parliament, our parliamentarians. They're lawyers, they're doctors, economists, we have businessmen. We have a vast area of different representation, right? So someone actually told me, how interesting would it be to have a psychologist being part of that diversification? Now, one of the most important thing about a budding psychologist is that they have to do research. They have to do poll sampling. Poll sampling is whereby you go into the ground, go into your community, go into a remote location, and you basically interview the individuals that are there. You interview the people, and there is usually a goal that you want to pursue. Either you want to find out, you want to distinguish what issue or what problem is mostly affecting these individuals. Mm-hmm. So I honestly want to collaborate the work of what I can do in Parliament with our research as a budding psychologist, because it takes, okay, so one of the important thing about parliamentarians, which are policymakers, it is important to know these policies that you're making, who is it benefiting? Mm-hmm. What section of the people are going to be benefited from it? How are you even going to know this information if you don't go out? If you don't go out there, mm-hmm. if you don't ask the people, if you don't find out for yourself. So this is something very close to my heart, mm-hmm. where I can go out to these people, where I can go out to different community, because something that might affect me in Georgetown might not necessarily affect people in Linden. Okay. Things that I may need in Georgetown to be improved for me might be something completely different. So when we are making policies, we have to be certain and we have to be knowledgeable, and we have to be knowledgeable about this legislation that is being passed will be able to benefit our persons on the long run and a greater population, okay. Right? So for me, these are things that touch my heart. Being able to go out to meet persons, to have a one-on-one personal contact, communication with individuals, mm-hmm. that I can understand what is exactly needed and necessary for persons in different parts and regions of Guyana.
Good. Excellent. I like it a lot. I like it a lot. I like your hands-on approach. I think everybody in the country feels that politicians need to listen to the people a bit more. I think that is a big gap. And I think that has been shown very recently in the budget, in the new budget that passed in January. There are a few very interesting factors that I personally believe, and I'll ask your opinion on it. So, for example, that I believe are shortcomings, if you will, because it clearly shows a detachment with the people. For example, cost of living issues. Right. I saw one of the new implementations of the government that put in place in the budget was that they were raising pension. So they raised pension by 3,000 Guyana dollars. Right. Per person, per month. Now, we all know that cost of living has sharply risen, a little bit more than that. Another one of them is they've risen the threshold. These are things that they put all over the public. Right. They've risen the threshold to $100,000. And when you do the calculations to that, it adds a whole 4,000 Guyana dollars more per month to the people. As a matter of fact, I'm going to ask our operator to please bring up the 13,000 people that are going to benefit one of the news articles from the threshold, because I thought that this was a very odd situation to have promoted one. So let's start with the first and foremost aspect of this scenario. So firstly, I have a problem with the 13,000. Okay, I don't think it is something that we should be proud of in particular, because what it says and implies is that 13,000 people in this country are earning only $500 a month or less. All right.
Right.
So we have a huge issue in cost of living. All right. The next part of that is they use these big figures of how much for
14 billion.
13. Yeah.
But billion.
Billion. It sounds like a wonderful figure, but it equates to a whole $4,000 each person. Tell me your take on these types of measures that are being put in place and what you think would be better solutions and something that you think you're going to be a little bit more able to fight for when it comes to the people of the country and cost of living and money in their pockets, essentially.
Right. I think cost of living is, for me, is a big one, is one of the main issues. If it's affecting me, it's more than likely affecting all youths, all person in every sector and every category of our livelihood. So I think that we are looking at the cost of living, right? And it's because there's so many things going in my mind. You have no idea. I want to look at the working class, right? Because it's we have so the threshold has been risen from 75 to 100, right? It's like 15,000 extra. Yeah. But when you do the actual calculation after tax and everything, it's like a $5,000.
Right.
Now, for me, if you really want to give back something to the working class, I personally would raise the threshold to 200,000.
Excellent.
Right?
I agree.
I feel also that PAYE can be reduced.
It's craziness. You're right.
Like 15%.
Yeah, I think it's at 34% right now, or something along those lines.
Something along those lines, or 28 points.
Even better, yeah. Well, sorry, if you add in VAT and PAYE and NIS, it goes up to 34 or something like that. Okay. So yes, but PAYE by itself, you're right. My mistake is 28. Correct.
And to be honest,
go ahead.
Mandate.
What do you think PAYE could come down to?
Well, that's what I was saying, to 15%, right?
100%,
so,
especially with the new oil income.
As we're continuing to looking at the working class, in my opinion, mandate a 13th salary, and retroactive. The 13th salary, for those who don't know, when you come at the end of the year, you receive your salary for December. The 13th salary is basically another salary that you receive. Right. The reason why December is one of the most rigid time of the year for everyone, for businesses, for persons, especially the working class. Everything goes up, right? So when you say cost of living, this is the reason why it's like I stumble. There's just so many things. Transportation go up, food go up. And one of the most important things that we buy during Christmas, nothing for we belly, not to eat. Yeah. So our grocery, vegetable, transportation, all these areas, when they increase, we feel it. This 13th salary, you mandate a 13th salary, it would be,
I like it.
it would be when you reach to something like 1.146 trillion in the budget, it would be nice that you can invest. I would be thinking that a couple years ago, we imagined that we ever reaching this amount in our budget, that it was being invested into our pockets. Right? I understand that there's the importance of infrastructure and everything, but it's how you structure. How you structure and you make your implementation in this budget.
Invest in human capital and in infrastructure.
So for me, the working class need to feel some ease and pressure, not just enough to keep your head above water.
I'm with you.
I think some persons are drowning right now. The thing with increased cost of living too, you have to look at it from a perspective, is that with increased cost of living and persons having a difficult time to sustain themselves, it can lead to things like crime. And for a psychological perspective, these are things that we look at. We already have a high increased crime rate.
Well, hold on. Let me just pull up another clip here now that we're going to jump into crime rate. Because I'm with you so far. First of all, to come down on PAY, I think it's necessary. I think the threshold of 200,000 really and truly is a drop in the bucket when it comes to the amount of money that will be coming out of the system. And more so is super important to be put back in the pockets of the citizens. So I think this was a shabby attempt, if you ask me, to try and get political mileage or claim to be in any way, shape, or form benefiting people when it works out to $4,000 or $5,000 extra a month for anybody who are within this threshold. That's madness to me, right? On that first 100,000. So jumping into crime, why I like this conversation is because at the end of the day, if people don't have money, crime is going to go up. Because people have to survive.
Exactly.
Okay? But with that said, that's one aspect of crime, of the criminal element. You now, with your profession, as you said multiple times here, with the psychological side of it, crime, that is a whole other side of why crime occurs. Now, I would just like to pull up an article. It was about the crime rate increase recently. It came from Stabrook News. There was a press conference held by the Ministry of Home Affairs, and what they did is they had this very complex headline that really was quite detrimental. I think it was speaking about murders increasing and fires and road deaths. Well, the road deaths are something we're going to talk about too. And here you have it. It says, wait, let me turn around for my people here, so you guys know we haven't forgotten you. I will. So what it was is road deaths rose by 76.8% last year. Fires up, just so you can see that, fires up by 182.5%. Now here's the real kicker for me. When you read the bottom of the article, the first paragraph in it, it says traffic deaths, fires, and murders saw sharp increases last year, but overall there was a reduction in serious crimes by 15%. Well, I'm going to be a little bit...
Murder is serious.
Well, that's a question that I think we need to ask ourselves. So is crime...
Just the wording.
Is crime not a serious...
It's just the wording.
Is murder not a serious crime? But nonetheless, what I find interesting about this entire scenario is that when you see road deaths and murder with sharp increases, what does that signify to you as a psychologist, and even more so as a parliamentarian in conjunction?
Sorry, say that again.
When you see a sharp rise in murders and road deaths, what does that signify to you on a psychological perspective, and more so something that can translate to Parliament?
Yeah, on a psychological perspective, comes back to the first topic that we started, like I said, cost of living, right? It adds a bit of oppression to the individuals, a bit of struggle. Persons usually revert to crime because they do not know how to manage the different challenges that they face with life. I I would like to say also, you were talking about the road rage, right? We already have laws in place, actually. We have all the laws in place already when it comes to traffic offenses. But the other part of it is having it properly enforced. Right?
Good point.
And
good
I'm
point.
sorry to say, but a little bit of corruption can be a contribution to not having those things enforced. If we're having persons taking bribe, if we're having individuals not there to properly make those amendments, make those people are going to go away with it. People are going to continue to repeat their offenses, and we have a corrupt system now in our road rage, and then we wonder, why do we have so many accidents and stuff like that? So I'm not saying that it contributes entirely to that, but it contributes some amount of percentage. If we can have these laws being enforced properly, diligently, we can have a reduction, of the road rage. That's what I believe.
Just to elaborate, I think, a little bit on your point. I mean, if there's corruption in the police force and you can drive as fast as you want, you can catch speeding and you can pay your way out of it. If you could drink and drive and you can pay your way out of it. I mean, if you could jump a red light and pay your way out of it, obviously there's going to be a very sharp increase in road deaths. Right? Now, aside from the corruption in the police, which every Guyanese knows exists, because let's be honest, they're not paying the police properly, they're not training them properly, they're not giving them the benefits. I mean, let's be honest, what a complete joke of 6.5% increase on their salary. We know cost of living has gone up by at least 20% in 2023. They gave them a 6.5% increase for 2024. So that obviously just perpetuates the reason for corruption or the cause for corruption. Right? So
I know.
Go ahead.
Sorry to
go ahead.
Sorry to cut. I know that you would see a lot of comments every time there's an increase in something, whether it's by $5,000, whether it's by $3,000. You would always see there is celebration for it. Why? Because it is any kind of increase, right? But you would see some persons making comments like, "Oh, you guys are never grateful because we feel it's not enough."
I love it.
You guys are not grateful, and the government can never do to please you. But the thing is that you are given just enough, and I repeat, like I said, just to keep your head above water. What about taking you out? What about so one of the team actually in the budget staying on course, right? Just that initial part there kind of turned me off, because what am I staying in course with poverty?
Exactly.
I'm staying in course with oppression. I'm staying in course struggling to pay my bills.
That's right.
And while December comes, everything rises. January comes, nothing goes back down. And then there's a 3,000 that keeps, like I said, while I was about to drown in December, that 3,000 just put my nose back above water.
I don't even think it does. But yeah.
For me, it is about improving the quality of life and not just improving, because an increase, whether it's 3,000 or 5,000, it is an improvement.
Yeah.
That is the fact.
Yeah.
So
let me give you a slogan that I it's kind of my mantra right now with conversations with regards to budget and what the government is doing. Especially with all the comments you see, you guys never grateful, take where you get and be happy, the blah blah blah, something better than nothing. Well, here's my slogan with this: any Guyanese that accepts that a government is doing something, then I have an issue with the fact that they're not asking for them to do all that they can. So what I mean by that is, it should never be something is better than nothing.
Right.
It should always be, this is as good as they can do. Now, we have a problem here in this country where we keep accepting the little freck, we keep accepting the little, the little head above water, $3,000 or 6.5% increases. And it's barely keeping people surviving.
Yeah.
And then the government looks at you and says, well, be grateful. But I don't think anybody should be grateful for you just keeping my head above water. You're supposed to be giving me enough that I can grow.
Exactly.
And if you prove to me that you're doing all that you can do, then I will accept that as a reasonable excuse. But what we do know here in Guyana is that the government is not doing all they can do. They're doing the bare minimum. All right? They're doing the bare minimum to say, look, we did something. Well, guess what? In a slogan, something better than nothing. No, I would rather nothing than you not doing all you can tell, because at the end of the day, they're putting you in a position that you are just slowly slipping behind. Because if cost of living is rising faster than your income is being earned, then you have a problem.
Right.
You're eventually going to sink. Here's a key for me, and this is what I think most Guyanese need to understand, is that the working class of Guyana, is so close to bankruptcy that they don't understand. One illness, that they can't work for a month or 2 months. They crash their car. Let's say something happened in the house that damage, and they have to spend, $2 million to do over the bathroom, the place flood out, whatever the story is. All of a sudden, they have no more money. So when they're sitting here thinking to themselves, all right, I'm making it work right now. Imagine one thing going wrong, and all of a sudden you have nothing left. Right? So God forbid a fire, God forbid something, a real illness, that puts you out for 6 months or more. What then? You're living on the street after that?
Yep.
So this is the issue that we're looking at going forward. Now, we've been talking about corruption. We've been talking about cost of living rising. We've been talking about threshold rising. I want to know what you, as a psychological student, thinks about how much work the government is doing as far as mental health goes, and what you believe can be done a little bit more or less, or if they're doing a good job, by all means. It's important to say, but show me the weak areas. Show me what more can be done.
So basically, in Guyana, it's not so, the field of psychology of itself is not so prevalent in our country, sadly, because every human being we run by we run through cognitive escape, right? Mm-hmm. Basically, we have to, our mentality, the way we are nurtured from childhood to adulthood, and the way we are cultured as a country, right, tells on a lot of things. So one thing I want to highlight here, which is very important, I don't know if persons know this, but this has been one of the top things in psychology. Guyana being on the top 10 in the world, rating high in suicide. The suicide rate is one. Actually, it's not top 10. It's we're on the second. We're the second on the list. Actually.
Okay, so we're top 2. Okay, well, that's horrible.
So
tell me.
So you have to you ask yourself now, why do we have surprisingly, there was actually gender by which one of the gender is the highest. Actually, it was male. I thought that was also interesting. Okay. So when you see something like that, what is the role? What is the role of man? Generally, men in society, they strive, first of all, to provide for their family, right? They are the protectors, they are the providers, they are the one who man up to their challenges. They don't show weakness because they are basically the figure that is supposed to be strength, and they're the representation of this for their family. So when you look at a high rate in suicide, Guyana at number 2, and the by 69% it is male, you have to ask yourself, what is it exactly that bring men to this state?
Okay.
So it comes back again, and this is why I always say cost of living will always be a big one for me. It affects every sector of our country, of our people.
So if a man can't earn enough, he feels inadequate, and that can lead to depression.
See, it doesn't even take a psychologist to explain this to you. This is something that, you know, we analyze, and it becomes so cliche for the society. So I do feel, and this is what I say, that psychology is not a very prevalent field, but this is one of the reasons why psychology can make a very big impact in our country. So when you say things like, okay, what does the parliamentarian, what holds dear to her heart, and what can she do in parliament? Now look at all these, you look at all of these areas that I had presented in terms of poll sampling, in terms of taking care of the mental health of our people, and at the same time we work with the statistics of figures in increasing our figures to a certain level that cost of living does not have to affect every aspect of our lives.
So eliminate economics from the mental burden of, you know, our citizens. That's it. That's one of the tools that you're looking to utilize, correct?
Yes.
Money.
I understand
Right?
what you're saying. Yes.
Good.
Right?
All right.
So,
but let's talk now about something a little bit more in depth on mental health. Let's talk about things like substance abuse and domestic violence. Now, tell me a little bit more of those, how you feel. I know you've been, I know you've been talking to your dean and so on when it comes to areas that you think need to be highlighted as far as mental health in Guyana is concerned. Right. So talk to me a little bit about these areas and other areas that you and your
I also didn't finish answering your question with the mental health. I'll come back to that, right? Yeah. Because like I said, it's a very extensive topic. Sometimes when you see me pause, it's because I'm calculating which area to pull first, because there's just so much. But okay. So I would like to say that one of the 2 areas where we can use psychological methodology and making it more extensive in terms of having, okay, I'll get to that. Okay. So one of the areas, one of the source areas, we say that psychological methodology can be used to reduce crime, right? It can be used to reduce crime due to recidivism, and I will get back to that, right? I spoke about the reduction also of high suicide rate in Guyana, right? That's another area that can be impacted greatly. One of the 3rd area, and this one is my favorite, and it's my favorite because it clings to my youth and my experience, my personal experience, and that is reducing the violence in school. Now,
that's interesting.
The source of many things that we experience comes from our childhood, comes from what we're learning at school, what we're learning at home, how we are being nurtured in these institutions of the family and of our education to make us the man and woman we are in Guyana today. So
that's interesting.
So this is why I want to say that mandating counselors at every school is very important and essential. What is the role of the counselor in the school? The role of the counselor in the school first helps to identify not only persons who might be susceptible to depression or having suicidal ideation, but also persons who may be encountering some form of abuse at home. Okay. These are things that we are there to analyze, right? This was one of the things that is the source, because abuse
Agreed.
is something that brings out aggression in our youth. If we are able to curb the path and the trajectory of the life of our youths, this is how we make a difference, and we remove them from the path of criminal behavior or being a criminal in the future, right? Tackling it from the source.
I couldn't agree more.
And this is very, and it is very, very important that we have counselors in our school.
Excellent.
Coming back to recidivism, right? This is one that my dean actually spoke about, because as a budding psychologist, we actually have to go out there, sometimes to the prison, sometimes to our military force, to do our necessary evaluation, and this is how we actually start. So my journey to being a clinical psychologist doesn't start when I start working as a psychologist. It actually starts while I'm studying. They send us out there like, oh, you go over there, you go to the prison, and we start. And of course, we have persons that, we're attached to who are invigilating us. So when I say reduce crime due to recidivism, and this is things that people don't know except for persons who are in the research doing it. It is basically persons who come out from jail and they basically go back to crime, and now they're put back in jail.
Right.
We have a high rate of recidivism.
Okay.
Basically a high rate of repeated offenders.
Ooh, okay.
So one of the approach that we can take, which we do not have in the system, is have a proper rehabilitation approach.
I like it.
Right?
Yeah.
We need to instill clinical psychologists and criminal psychologists and mandate or make it mandatory that everybody see them weekly, evaluate and come to, these are the professionals who do their high grading evaluation on these individuals. They use various methods. One, for example, called cognitive behavioral therapy. This is actually used to curb the mindset. We tackle your mind. We curb your mindset to what brought you into the life of crime and how to get you out there, how to get your mindset out there. Crime happens within us, within our heart and intention. It can be unintentional, but I'm talking about intentional crime, right? So when you get that, when you have those professionals instilled, the second phase that you want to go to is having programs like coping mechanism strategy, right? Having anger management control. Listen, this might sound a little for persons who do, like I said, it's not very prevalent in our country. So persons
you're here to showcase. No.
Bat,
I think people are learning a lot. I'm loving it so far.
Let's look at why people actually commit crime. Let's look at one of the reasons. We already distinguish cost of living.
Yeah, the economic
persons not
state.
being able to provide for their family, people struggling, they run into debt, they can't handle it anymore. It's either suicide or some other, or they revert to crime, right? We already distinguish that. Persons not being able to control their emotions. As much as we want to
but that goes
move
back to
away
your
from
students.
this,
That's something you need to learn from childhood, putting counselors in schools.
Outbursts.
Yeah.
Having outbursts. You would have seen what happened in schools.
Absolutely. Well, look at what's going on right now all the time. Every day a video has come out.
Relationship, right? Oh, I didn't even mention okay, I'll come back to that. So
it's okay. There's a lot going on in your head.
Okay, so yeah,
I think you're enjoying this conversation.
The reason why these programs are very important, like I said, this is my heart. This is really my heart, Kian.
I'm learning a lot. I like your two approaches so far. I like the rehabilitation in prisons, and I like the counselors in school. Honestly, that's what I've gathered so far. And those two areas, to me, are so critical. Right. And I hope people can understand, and everybody can get on board in understanding what Althia is bringing to Parliament here. I mean, with your expertise, this is something that all of us agree is needed. Not to mention, we can see the tangible changes that can occur in society if we just implement these two simple things, for example. And fund them properly.
And
Go ahead.
Another thing
I love
too,
it.
Another thing too. While we have anger management control, we have a coping mechanism strategy. The reason why is, like I said, persons who are. It's very important to have a program that teach people how to cope with the challenges of life. All of us are going through that. All of us are struggling in some way or the other. All of us have some personal issue that we are dealing with. And the ones who are here is because they are coping.
Yeah.
So provide a program that helps these inmates, these prisoners to cope with the challenges in life that they do not have to revert to crime.
Okay.
Right? Anger management control, this is more of a psychological aspect of it, because persons who are not able to, control their emotions, it can happen to anyone. Sometimes you just burst out in anger, you stab someone. Like I said, crime can happen in different ways. This wasn't a premeditated crime, but it happened and you're in jail. So anger management control is very important, even though we might not consider emotions and these things as anything prevalent in society. It exists and it happens.
Absolutely. I want to ask about something else that you maybe can shed some light on. What about the aspect of substance abuse? So alcoholism, drug use, things like that. Now, we know that obviously, everyone consumes alcohol in Guyana.
Right.
Some might say too much. It's just become this really odd cultural norm. And then especially in the country areas, in the rural areas, it then stems to abuse and then even worse, drinking and driving and et cetera, and et cetera. Tell me what might be some of the reasons and solutions to why people are, abusing these substances, whether it be drugs, or alcohol for that matter. Alcohol is a drug, but yeah.
So these drugs and all these psychoactive drugs, these are things that make people feel good. The reason why people revert to something that can make them feel good, they might just be trying out something. We've already spoken many things. They are being oppressed in some way or the other in their life, right? We are as a political point of view, we are trying to look at the aspect in how we can politically do our part.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry I have to repeat it, but cost of living helps to remove people from having to revert, if not to crime, if not to suicide, substance abuse.
I like it.
Right?
I can see that. Yeah.
I also want to say, this is not really a political view, but it happens because of how we're being nurtured as well, what kind of home,
environment, your family environment.
Sometimes your community, what you are being exposed to. Now, on a political point of view, if we have more programs, more sporting activity for youths to do, they won't have to be idle doing, looking for, engaging in activities that do not help them in any way to grow and just bring damage to themselves and to society. So on a political aspect, we're looking to increase and improve the livelihood of individuals. Okay. We are also looking to promote more programs for youths to do, make things more enticing that students want to focus on their study, their free tertiary education. This is one thing that I sincerely look rigidly for when I saw this on the manifesto for the PPP. I'm like, oh, free education. Oh my God, I can't wait to, So these are things that entice youths when they can see that they don't have to pay for their tertiary education, or they don't have to burden their family with paying for their tertiary education. There are many interpersonal relation problems that can happen in person's relationship when it comes to finance. Finance, like I said, put people on a tough spot, and it affects the family, it affects the youth, it affects your household and how these kids are being brought up. So they don't have to revert to crime. They don't have to revert to substance abuse and suicide.
Gotcha. Good. This is.
I didn't even finish
I know it's a mouthful, but it's not a psychological course. Nonetheless, I'm so impressed with your ideas moving forward. I mean, one of them is understanding the economic side of putting more money in people's pockets to ensure that the burden of financially providing for your family is alleviated, meaning that is one less source of depression, one less source of anxiety, right? And then the second one of having counselors in all the schools, which is something to me that I can't really wrap my head around why it doesn't fully exist. I don't know why, for example, they're not funding all of these psychologists and psychiatrists that exist in this country to go out into the various schools around the country and teach kids, coping mechanisms, giving them the tools to recognize, how to handle their emotions, how to recognize issues that they're having. And again, if you can give them those tools from childhood, then all of a sudden, like you said, it'll help to alleviate, the crime rate, later on in life. It'll give them a better opportunity to be successful, etc.
Right.
And then came the third one, which I really liked as well, is the rehabilitation programs in prisons. Yeah. Right.
It ends too with the rehabilitation. It doesn't end there with just having coping mechanism, anger management control, these other programs. Also skill-based programs. Persons also commit crime because they just don't they don't know how to do something for themselves.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about starting their own business or being an asset professionally in someone else's business, right? So it is very important to encourage the idea of person not coming out to commit crime by, like I said, offering and doing the best that you can. Do your part. It might not everybody might end up, but do your part and make sure that the rehabilitation approach is there. So when these inmates come back, they have to reintegrate now with society. Persons are not going to want to hire ex-convict, but we need to have public services that are ready to open up their doors for persons on whichever skill they would have chosen, that they can now utilize that skill and start making a living, start providing and providing for their family. And they don't have to go to crime. They can reintegrate a brighter future for themselves. So it's a process that takes a lot of work on each stage. Right. So with this approach is one of the best approach that we can see, which my dean would have, come over with us based on the research and based on what the work we have already started doing here in Guyana. This approach is what we assess can really work great for persons turning their life around.
Yeah, absolutely.
And, picking up from where they left off.
Excellent. Okay, we are running out of time here. I think we only have about a couple more minutes.
I thought it was like 2 minutes.
No, we started a little early, so we're going to end a little early. But I do have one more important question for you. Just give me your quick answer, because I think it's an important question to understanding what you're going into Parliament. You are going to be sitting in the only seat outside of APNU, AFC, and PPP. Okay, right. AP and UFC being one party, the main opposition, and PPP being the government. You are going to be sitting in the only seat outside of those two. Let me ask what you think is the role that you can play between those two organizations, those two political parties sitting in Parliament, going back and forth at each other. Tell me, you sitting in the middle, what you think your job can be in there.
So
quickly as possible.
Okay. So the idea that we have right now, the culture that we have right now in Parliament, is that we have two sides that, with reason, have something against the other. They have a history of probably hatred towards each other. Like I said, with reason, because of things that would have been thrown around and what would have happened, who would have been arrested during this time. It is very, this is the current issue that we have. But what is important is that the reason for policymakers is that we need to centralize what Guyana, what our citizens need. We need to put aside our bickering and our fighting to focus on the needs of Guyana. Now, if we have these two who can't put themselves together, who comes in now as a third force to create that balance?
Okay. Interesting. I like it.
I mean, not me, but
no, it absolutely is you though. Yeah, no, it absolutely.
Even though
you're representing, absolutely.
So even though I am sitting in that chair, I have a board of executives, as you all should know. I have a board of executives who is backing me. We have discussions, and every decision that I may portray out there is because it was a unanimous decision amongst us. So it's not just Althia King representing or being that balance between those two large parties, but it's because we understand the necessity that these two parties is what we need to govern Guyana together. We need the inclusivity of what they represent, the people that they represent. It's very essential, it's very important that we have a third force to maintain that balance. If we can't have that balance, it's going to continue to be chaotic as I continue to see it. Like I said, it's a lot of tension between the two. But at the end of the day, we're all human beings. As a budding psychologist, I'm there to analyze my environment. I'm there to study my environment. But at the same time, we're all human beings. And I feel we can put aside, with the encouragement of a third person there, we can put aside our hatred towards each other, the history of innuendos throwing and insinuation throwing, to put the needs of Guyana first.
Good. I like it.
We need to have both representation being heard, not just the one side taking all the votes and passing all the legislation. We need inclusivity, and with a swing vote, with the support of our citizens going behind our third force who wants to recognize that Guyana need that balance, we can swing to include whatever the people want to have passed in their legislation.
I like it a lot. I like it a lot. You actually have me a little excited here. I
but
think
it's true. It's true.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of persons actually reach out to me to tell me how important the third force is and how important my job is. As already it's not tense.
Yeah, it's going to be more intense.
Remind me how tense it is. But yeah, that's what I'm here for. I'm here to work. I'm not here to smile and play games.
Ensure all Guyanese are represented. You're not here to smile and play games with anyone?
No, not here to smile and play games. We're serious. We're here to work. We are serious about the quality of the lives of Guyanese being improved. Like I said, I really want to see something for our youths. I'm here to voice something for the youths, for the working class, for the mothers who have to take care of their kids, and they also, I would like that they also have something that they do not always have to depend on a man to provide. If we can support those women, it would reduce also domestic violence and persons staying in relationship, abusive relationship for the sake of money. Our country can do better, and I'm here to make that support with the contribution. No, that's not the word I want to say. But with the help of our Guyanese, everybody who's watching this show, if you guys believe in that balance in the third force, well, then we are here to make it happen and include you in that decision making. So we're the swing vote to Parliament.
I love it.
For the next election.
I love it. Come 2025, vote ANUG.
2025.
Okay. I love it. The campaign has started. I'm all on board. All right. On that note, I want to thank you very much for coming in. We have to close off now. We started a little early and we're going to finish a little early, but I think we got so much information in. I personally am super impressed. I know that we're going to have an exciting 2 years ahead of us leading up to elections. And like I said, I don't want to hear you smiling and talking nice to anybody. You're down to do your job. And
we're here to work.
And we're here to work. I am in for it. On that note, Althia, again, thank you for coming in and joining me.
you for having me.
No, anytime. You're going to be back soon. Again, guys, thank you guys for joining us here on Apolitically Incorrect. I want you guys to have a very safe weekend. I want you to have a very safe Friday night. Be careful on the roads. As we've seen, the numbers have been crazy. And all in all, please just really look out for each other. All right. This is what I think is important in Guyana right now. As Althia said, it's ensuring everybody's kept. I think that the saying is, you are your brother's keeper. So you have to ensure that you're looking out for one another, and all Guyanese are looking out for each other. On that note, my name is KIAN Jabour. Thank you for joining us here in Apolitical, and we will be back next week again. Take care, everyone.